Are you ready to take control of your family legacy and financial future? Howard Kaye and his experienced team have been helping families and business owners coast to coast with their most important financial decisions for more than 60 years. They have the proven strategies you need to grow and protect your wealth and family legacy for generations to come. Whether you're focused on wealth creation strategies, planning for guaranteed lifetime income, selling an existing life insurance policy that's no longer needed or wanted, or simply leaving a financial legacy for future generations, Howard Kaye has the resources to guide you every step of the way. Howard and the team at Howard Kaye Insurance Agency LLC want you to live a rich life that's well planned and tailored to your dreams. Live Rich, Die Rich starts now.
Estate planning is not something many people put at the top of their to-do list, but it's something you can't avoid forever. Today, you'll hear how estate planning is something everyone might consider starting sooner rather than later. Welcome to our program, everyone. I'm Amy Sharp, and joining me, Howard Kaye and Tony Scuderi with Howard Kaye Insurance Agency. And Howard, Tony, it's always good to be with you. How are you, gentlemen?
Great to be here.
Wonderful.
All right, we're talking about an important topic today. When do you recommend retirees start this process of estate planning? Because a lot of times people will maybe think, I can put that off. I'll get to that eventually. But there should be a starting date, and it's sooner rather than later.
Well, there's different definitions of what somebody might consider estate planning to be. It can be as simple as when you're young, making sure that you have a will in place, that you have certain trusts, if you have children, that you want to leave certain monies, if you're interested in leaving money to charity. But for the most part, we find that younger people, that is not top of mind. So what is top of mind for them is not spending money on any of those things. However, as people get older, more in their 40s, 50s, they've become more established, they've made money, they realize what will happen ultimately when they pass away, whether there's probate involved in their estate, what happens if you don't have a will or you don't have trust, what happens if you don't have life insurance? Will all my money pass to my children, to my grandchildren? And that's the time that people start to focus on, hey, what is the best approach that I can accommodate taxes, leave everything I want to everyone I want, and not have an issue?
And if I may add, Amy, like everything else, timing is important, but most folks spend more time planning their family vacation than they do their estate plan. So we try to reprioritize for them by subjecting the concept or presenting the concept of a review right at our office so we can take a look, take an inventory of steps they've taken, perhaps steps they haven't taken, make some recommendations, and ultimately kind of forge a plan for them that they could follow to accomplish their goals.
That's a pretty eye-opening fact that you just said, planning more for your vacation than for your estate.
It's a sad truth, yeah.
But it is true, like you said. There are a lot of misconceptions out there about, for someone who is ready to set their estate plan in motion. What are some of those?
Well, most of the misconceptions really come around life insurance. Because as you know, and when people hear the idea of life insurance, it's like, wait a minute, I'm fine. I don't need any. Or we've already got it covered. They don't know what they've got covered, but they've got it covered. Well, we like to break the myths and misconceptions when it pertains to life insurance, and it's very simple. There's an estate tax. There's an estate tax exemption. And again, I'm talking about from the area that we look at estate planning. When we're talking about smaller estates that aren't subject to taxes, a good estate planning attorney is always needed. For large estates, a great estate planning attorney is needed. But where we come in is to help accommodate those ultimate taxes so it doesn't all go to the government, it goes to your family. So we like to talk about life insurance from the standpoint of whatever ultimate tax your family is going to see, we want to buy that amount of money in life insurance. And I want you to just pick up on one word I just said, money, because that's what life insurance is. And people forget that. They don't realize life insurance is an asset. It's an incredible asset. At the end of the day, how much money does somebody want to buy? So, for example, if I'm talking to somebody that has a $10 million estate, in the old days, when the exemptions were very low, they had a $4 to $5 million tax bill. The idea was to buy a $5 million life insurance policy outside of their estate for the benefit of their children. Now, because the lifetime exemptions are so high, where they're over $13 million a person, really the first 26 million is free from tax. But we do know in 2026, January 1st, those exemptions are coming down, $5 million apiece. So I say to those people that are worth $20 or $25 million today, you may be covered today, but if you're not planning on passing away in the next 2 years, you need some real planning. And that's where I'm going to show a 25 millionaire who is subject to taxes on exposure of 15 million because he and his spouse have a 10 million exemption between the two of them come 2026. 15 million is exposed to estate taxes. I need at least $6 million of life insurance to cover those taxes. And that's where we get into the focus of what estate planning with the use of life insurance can do for a family.
In addition, Amy, one very important fact that not every CPA is talking about, and that is that the IRS has made a proclamation on gifting. So for folks who do exercise their gifting privilege and they gift money out of their taxable estate, for example, into an irrevocable life insurance trust, that money can be used to purchase life insurance to create the money, the offset for the taxes that Howard's referring to. And if they don't do that by that date, the very end of December 2025, that money is then going to be subject to taxation. So they're essentially taking money that would be lost to taxation, and they would be buying literally millions of dollars of tax-free insurance that would create legacy protection for the family.
All right, this is important information. Howard, Tony, thank you so much. We got more coming up, so don't
Absolutely.
go away. This is all great insights. Keeping in mind that leaving a positive legacy is the goal, but some people worry about how much it will cost them. Coming up next, Howard and Tony explain what you can expect to pay during retirement. Stay tuned.
Everybody needs a plan. If Carol's ever going to retire, she needs a plan. So does Bob, if he ever wants to catch a break. Jim and Susan, they need a plan to keep the beat going. And Puddles over there? Yeah, he's gonna need a plan too. You? Yeah, you probably need a plan. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you can use a plan for retirement. We can help.
Welcome back to the show. Estate planning does not have to be expensive. I'm back with Howard and Tony, and we're talking about this very important topic. And I think, a lot of people have this misconception, like we've talked about, that it's going to be so expensive. Is there a cost-effective way to get an estate plan set?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Again, when we talk about an estate plan, whatever an attorney is going to cost or charge to do a will, trust, and whatever other things need to be implemented for the basic planning is what it's going to cost. And that's for the individual to obviously go speak with them. When we get into the topic of life insurance, and again, what we try to do for our customers with respect to estate planning, again, is to leave their estate completely intact for the benefit of their family. So is there a cost to life insurance? Of course there's a cost. But is it an expense? I don't believe so. Why? When you have money in the stock market, you bought a stock. Now you're putting money in there to make money. You hope. Do you look at that purchase of stock as an expense? I don't. It was an investment. Now I can't say that my life insurance is an investment because for compliance reasons, you're not allowed to say life insurance is an investment. But you tell me, if I show somebody how to put $1 million into a life insurance policy that's going to pay out $10 million completely tax-free. I can't tell you the exact date of when it's going to happen, but one day it's going to. How is that an expense? So it's interesting. I know you weren't going there with what is an expense or not, but I like to make that point clearer for the consumer to understand that life insurance, like I said earlier, it's an asset. It's just another means of purchasing money. And the question becomes, how much do you want to buy? Let me show you the leverage of what life insurance can do using that asset.
In addition, Amy, a lot of clients think in terms of estate planning when they hear that term as a way to reduce taxation. And for, quite honestly, many attorneys, that's the primary function. And really, that really shouldn't be the end goal. The end goal is how do I leave the most of what I have accumulated over the years to my family and to my favorite charities. That's the goal. So our planning involves leaving the most behind, not just minimizing taxes. That's part of the equation. When we gift money to an irrevocable life insurance trust, we're reducing our taxable estate while making that money that's buying the life insurance create a tax-free amount of money. So there is a taxation element, but the primary goal is to leave the most possible to the people we love and want to care for.
And the cost is obviously one of these reasons, but why do you believe a lot of people procrastinate on getting their estate plan in place? It's just like you said, when you're younger,
you don't think about it. Well, first of all, people do not like facing their own mortality. When I was a little boy and my father had started our company back in 1963, I remember in the early 70s coming in, and there was a psychiatrist that actually worked at our office. And I didn't understand why. And back then, the conversation of your own mortality with respect to life insurance was a very heavy topic. And they had a psychiatrist there to discuss how this doesn't mean that you're passing away when you buy an insurance policy. People really had an issue with that. So there's procrastination from that standpoint. There's procrastination for putting money into something that you can't really touch and hold. And on one hand, people like the idea, oh, we've taken care of our family. The other hand, they're saying, but we're not going to be here. How do we know? So that's a tough thing. But when people become established and they've been in the world of money, they know that they have to do certain things. And I just want to give you one quick example of a couple I met 20 years ago. And this is how the estate planning progressed. We started back then, they had been very successful in business. They were retired and they wanted to buy insurance for the benefit of their children and to cover estate taxes. They wanted to pay a lump sum. They put $4 million into a policy to buy $24 million of insurance. They were thrilled. They never had to look at it again. It was done. And it was very easy for them to say, we're not going to live on this $4 million. So they did that. 5 years later, they say, you know, we're ready to do something for our grandchildren. So what did they say? Well, we had 3 grandchildren at the time. We bought $3 million for each of them. Let's buy another $9 million of insurance. And I think it cost them somewhere around $1.6 million, $1.7 million. Now, I don't mean to be throwing numbers out like this. These are meaningful dollars, but they were able to afford it. And they like the idea that not only have we covered our children, but as grandparents, we just created $3 million extra for each of our grandkids. Now, all of a sudden, move to this previous year, and the husband unfortunately was failing in health. He's passed away now. But what they wanted to do was now accommodate their children's estate plan. They didn't want to wait for their children to do the estate plan. Now, why? Because from their mindset, while our children have done tremendously on their own, we helped create a tremendous amount of money for them and their children. We want to make sure that the money they have isn't subject to estate tax. So you know what they just did? They bought $10 million of life insurance on each one of their children and spouses. So 3 couples for a total of $30 million. The grandchildren pool is up to 9 grandchildren now. They've made sure that all of their grandchildren have money. The insurance was not bought on the adults, the grandparents' life. It was bought on the children's life for the benefit of their children, and it's the grandparents that paid for it. So they did their estate planning and took care of their children's estate planning.
And that's what it's all about. It's such a great feeling to know that you've left that behind, and you've done it on your own terms.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And coming up, Howard explains how to give away your estate twice. That's next in Dollars and Cents. And still to come, Howard and Tony answer some of your questions. Stay with us.
How much do you have saved for retirement? Now, cut that number in half. That's the impact inflation could have. Think about what that could do to your lifestyle and spending power in retirement. Inflation is on the rise. How can you protect your retirement dreams? Start by getting this free guide to understand inflation and the 5 easy steps you can take to help keep it from downgrading your retirement. You can't stop inflation, but if you act now, you may be able to minimize its impact on your retirement. Get your free copy now.
Today, we've been breaking down annuities as a retirement planning tool. Howard now explains to us how to maximize your annuity and your IRA. Howard?
Thank you, Amy, and welcome to Dollars and Cents. Ladies and gentlemen, this segment, we're going to be discussing a strategy that we've created called Give Your Estate Away Twice. I had discussed this on one of the previous shows that you may have seen, but not in full detail, so I really wanted to get into it. I thought it was fascinating the way this came to be, and like anything in life, the more you put yourself out there, the more you learn and can create. At least for us, that's what we do. So one day, this was probably 25 years ago, I was at a charity event, and I was at a luncheon, and this organization was talking about leaving your assets to this particular university. And people are asking questions along the way, and 2 hours go by, and a woman raises her hand and says, "Let me get this straight. You would like us to leave the bulk of our estate to the organization, thereby we wouldn't have any estate taxes, correct?" She says, "That's correct." She says, "Well, then what will my children receive?" And he says, "Well, in this case, you'd be leaving it to us." And she says, "But that's not what I want to accomplish. I'd really love to be able to leave you money and leave my family money." And of course, they went through the regular different approaches. Well, you can leave half to us, half to your children, so on and so forth. Anyway, at the end of this event, we started chatting, and I said to her, "You know, I was thinking about what you said. The truth of the matter is, you'd love to figure out a way to give everything to charity, but at the same time, without hurting your children and your grandchildren. You want them to reap the benefits of all of your assets." She said, "Absolutely." I said, "So if you don't mind, let me ask you a few questions." I said, "What did you estimate your net worth to be?" She said, "Approximately $10 million, of which we really just invest in bonds." That's what my husband's always done. "And we make 6% a year." That was $600,000 a year. Of course, the next question I ask her is, "How much do you spend a year to live on?" She says to me, quite honestly, it's embarrassing. "If we spend 100 to 150, we're lucky. We've never really spent a lot, and this is the way we continue to be." So we do have monies each year that we can support the charitable organization, which we always have, but we're trying to figure out the way to really leave a legacy to both parties, again, our children and the organization. I said to her, "That's fine." I said, "Let me ask you a question. Do you think you could live any differently on $8 million as opposed to $10 million? She says, "Well, that's a big chunk that you're taking away. $2 million out of our assets?" I said, "But remember, you told me you spend 100 to 150 a year. $2 million at 6% interest is $120,000. So if you only have $8 million now at 6%, that's $480,000. Don't forget, this was tax-free income. These were bonds. That's $480,000. You spend 100 to 150. You still have plenty of income." She goes, "You're right. I never looked at it like that. In fact, I never looked at any time giving away that kind of money in a lump sum." I said, "Well, follow along." I said, "Now, the reason I've said, can you afford to live on $8 million as opposed to 10, because in those days, the lifetime exemption was $1 million for each spouse, total of $2 million. You see, so what I told her was, I want you to take the $2 million and gift it to an irrevocable life insurance trust. And when you do that, you've complied with what your gifting is, so there's no gift tax that has to be paid. Now that there is $2 million in the trust," she told me her and her husband were 69 and 72 at the time, and at that time, she could take $2 million and purchase a $10 million life insurance policy on her and her husband. That's what we call a last-to-die survivorship life insurance policy. So I said, now we're going to take that $2 million, buy the $10 million of life insurance. It's owned outside of your estate within this trust for the benefit of your children, and if you want, you can put your grandchildren in that as well. Now, let's focus on what you have left. What you have left is $8 million. Remember, at 6% interest, that's $480,000 a year, of which you only live on 100 to 150. So again, I'm going to say to you, give yourself a raise. Spend 200, spend 250, enjoy your life. It's your money. But since you're not going to, the $8 million that you have left in your estate, you see, it's going to accumulate. Why? Because you're not spending all of the income. So by the time you and your husband pass, your estate may have grown from 8 to 10. It may have grown to 12. It may have grown to 15 million. It's a function of how long you're living. But if you think between the two of you, one of you is going to make it at least 20 years to around the age of 90, well, just think about this. If you have an additional income of approximately, remember you have 480, you're only spending 150, let's say, that's $230,000. 230 over 20 years is 4.6 million plus interest. Well, you tell me when you add that to your $8 million that you have left over, what it's really going to be worth. Well, right there, it's 12 million plus interest. You might be upwards of 14, 15 million. Now, what happens the day you both pass away? Your children received the $10 million completely tax-free within the irrevocable trust. The charitable organization, you're going to leave that 8 million or whatever it's grown to, 12, 14 million to the charity. There's no income tax. There's no estate tax on that money. The bottom line, I took your $10 million estate without affecting your lifestyle in any way whatsoever and made sure that not only would your children reap the benefits of the full 10 million, not only would you and your husband still enjoy the lifestyle that you've become accustomed to, but charity would receive anywhere from $8 to $14 million. That's giving your estate away twice here on Dollars and Cents.
Thanks, Howard. Coming up, both Howard and Tony will join me to answer some of your most pressing retirement questions in our Q&A segment. That's straight ahead.
Everybody needs a plan. If Carol's ever going to retire, she needs a plan. So does Bob, if he ever wants to catch a break. Jim and Susan, they need a plan to keep the beat going. And Puddles over there? Yeah, he's going to need a plan too. You? Yeah, you probably need a plan. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you can use a plan for retirement. We can help.
Our generation has always believed a hard day's work is its own reward. So for some of us, it's hard to turn off that work switch come retirement. But imagine what can happen when that work switch becomes a life switch. Then you realize every day in retirement is its own reward. We can help you flip the switch to make work days become life days.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time now to get to some of the questions you have for Howard and Tony, and I know this is one of their favorite segments. You guys ready for this?
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. The first one is from Jim in West Palm Beach. I'm 65 years old. I wrote my will when I was 50, and there is nothing in my will that I want to change. Do I still need to update it? And that does lend to the question, how often should we update our wills?
Well, I think if there's any real material change, but more importantly, it's the laws that change. So I think meeting with your attorney, or if you don't, you find an attorney that can review your will, see if there's anything that should be added, if there's any new laws that make a difference of how things are worded in the will. And then when we get into if there's nothing that has changed as far as who I want to leave things to and so on, well, have your assets changed? Are you worth more money? Do you have more interests now? Are you involved with any philanthropy? Do you want to do something for your kids? And are you okay now that you've breached that point where there's now an estate tax that maybe when you originally did your things, you didn't have that exposure, now you do. Are you okay with that? Or would you like to accommodate those taxes? So I think anytime there's any material change, and certainly every 5 years, go through a review because you just don't know what's come up.
Absolutely. And another factor, here in South Florida, a lot of folks are coming to Florida from other states. So they may have done a will in New Jersey or New York, but the laws there are different. So anytime you have somebody transfer from out of state, that's a time when you really should have that will updated, revised. In addition, some of the folks who may have at age 50 done a will now find themselves in a situation where they should have a trust, living trusts and irrevocable trusts, using life insurance, particularly if we're going to be funding a life insurance policy. All too often, we'll find life insurance policies that are owned by the insureds, and that becomes taxable in their estate because there's an incident of ownership. And that's what we're trying to eliminate, is as many taxes as possible. So we want the ownership of that policy to be outside the taxable estate, and that's where you put it into an ILIT, an irrevocable life insurance trust. If they only have a will, they're not properly prepared.
Okay, and one more from Laura in West Palm Beach. My dad and mom are very involved in charitable causes, but my siblings are concerned that most of my parents' wealth will go to charity and not to us. There is some life insurance in place, but we are not sure who the beneficiaries are. Is there a way to satisfy my parents' desire to be charitable while ensuring that some of the family wealth goes to us kids and the grandchildren?
That's a sticky conversation, because as my mother had always discussed with me, this is our money. We love you children to death, but we come first and you come second in terms of we're going to be living here a lot shorter than you and your siblings are. So we want to be able to do everything that we want. Of course we want to take care of you. Of course we want to provide for you, but not on your terms. On our terms. Now, one way around that is the children can buy, as I've said in previous shows, a life insurance policy on their parents. So as my brother and sister and I did, we bought another policy on my parents, a last to die policy, knowing exactly what we were going to get. We paid the premiums. My parents were okay with it. They loved the idea. It wasn't any financial burden to them. So that's one way of doing it. But it's a delicate conversation, but nevertheless, it can be accomplished through life insurance.
Sort of got to put your counselor hat on at this point, don't you?
That's right. And as Howard had mentioned in prior segments, this concept of giving away your estate twice, you don't have to split the pie. There's enough going around, as long as you plan properly, to gift money into a trust that purchases the life insurance that's going to pay the estate taxes, take care of the family, and take care of charity. We don't have to deal with a finite amount of money. There's a way to solve the problem.
Great insights, as always.
What
Such an important.
I would say is let your parents come up with the idea.
Yeah, it always works. Right. It worked when we were younger too, right? I love that. Okay, thank you so much. If you have a question, you can call the number on your screen or visit the website at any time. When it comes to your money, your retirement, and your family legacy, it's important that you've considered all the options, including life insurance, annuities, and life settlements in your planning. You've heard a lot of great information today, so why wait? Take what you've learned today to help you live rich in the years to come. For Howard Kaye and Tony Scuderi and the team at Howard Kaye Insurance Agency, I'm Amy Sharp, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.